Students, today we'll start with our second topic, that is fertilization. Fertilization, you have learned from the lower classes that it is the union or fusion of two nuclei, that is male and female gametes. In flowering plants, there are two types of gametes. One is male gamete, another one is female gamete. Male gamete comprises of pollen grain. The pollen grain produces inside two male gametes, and the female gamete is produced inside the ovule, which is present inside the ovary. In the last chapter about the flower, you have read about pollen grain, ovary, ovule, and other essential parts of the flowering plants. I'll just recapitulate that all things. Here you can see the floral holes of a flower. You know the flower consists of four floral holes, namely calyx, corolla. Calyx is the collection of sepals, while corolla is the collection of the petals, and these two are non-essential parts of the flower. The main essential hole of the flowers are androecium and gynoecium. Androecium is the male part, gynoecium is the female part. You can see over here the diagram. It's given very clearly. Non-essential part, that is calyx and corolla, they do not take part in the reproduction, in the fertilization of a flower, while the essential holes like the androecium and gynoecium are only directly involved in the sexual reproduction. These two diagrams shows the male and female sex organs respectively. You can see male sex organ as androecium, which is also known as stamen, is the male part of the flower, and it is also called as the stamen. Here this stamen is also known as the microsporangia. The female sex organ is called as gynoecium. It consists of carpel or megasporophyll. So entire thing is called as carpel, megasporophyll or pistil. You have read about stamen as a male reproductive organ, and here is the diagram of that. It consists of three main parts. This entire stamen consists of three main parts. First one is filament, which is also known as the stalk of the flower. Another one is known as anther, which is a two-lobed structure. Here you can see the yellow one. That is the anther. That is a two-lobed structure. You can see a two-lobed structure. Another one is connective. Connective is the one which connects this filament along with the anther. This entire thing is known as the stem. You can see the structure of stamen and how inside the anther the pollen sacs are present. You can see four pollen sacs present, which are known as microsporangias respectively. Inside that the pollen grains are present. So these pollen grains are mainly the male gamete. Now here comes the carpel, that is the female part, female reproductive organ. It also consists of three main parts, that is stigma, over which in the pollination one, last part you have learnt about pollination. You know stigma plays a very big role in this. So stigma, then style, this neck-like structure is called as style, and this one comes as the ovary. Inside that ovule is present, and here only the fertilization takes place. Ovary is the main part inside which ovule is present, and this is the basic place for fertilization. Now we'll discuss about the pollen grain, that is the male gamete. See, a mature pollen grain is a cell with double wall. Here I am showing you the diagram, how it comes. So this is basically a pollen grain. It consists of two layers, the outer layer which is known as exine, then comes the inner layer which is known as intine, and in between you will find germ pore. Germ pore is a pore which is present in between these two. It consists of two nucleus. One is tube nucleus, another one is generative nucleus. This tube nucleus and generative nucleus, when this pollen grain matures and they after pollination falls on the stigma, this is the female part of the flower, on the stigma, when it falls on the stigma of the carpel, this pollen grain starts its development of the pollen tube. Here diagram in your book also you can see figures mentioned as figure 5.6, in which you can see C and D are mentioned over there. This is typically how this particular pollen tube grows after falling on the stigma. After pollination it starts further growth, and this grows into a pollen tube, and you can see here the generative nucleus and the tube nucleus, these are also growing along with the pollen tube. Tube nucleus is for this pollen tube, and this generative nucleus which is present over here, this after the growth of this pollen tube divides into two, that is they are known as, this generative nucleus divides into two and it is known as sperm nuclei, two sperm nucleus. So here you can see three nucleus. This after fertilization, the tube nucleus, as soon as this tube nucleus reaches to this part, that is the female ovule, I will discuss about this later, this tube nucleus degenerate and the sperm nucleus is, this two sperm nuclei are released inside the female part. So this was all about the male gamete, that was the pollen grain. Now we'll talk about the female ovule. You can see in this diagram the female ovule is mentioned. Inside the female ovule, this ovule you have learnt in the lower classes that ovule becomes the seed after the fertilization, and this ovary turns to become the fruit. So inside this ovary lies the ovule, and this inside the ovule lies this part. This particular part is known as the embryo sac. This entire thing which is found inside the ovule, this oval like structure is known as the embryo sac, and it consists of, this embryo sac consists of 7 cells. You can see 3 plus 3 plus 1. I'll explain you how it is. You can see I'll count over here 3, that is 1 2 3 1 2 3 and 1. These two are fused together. Now let me tell their names. These 3 are lying toward the upper part. This ovule consists of 2 parts. The down part is known as the micropyle, the upper portion is known as the chalaza. From this micropyle end comes this pollen tube and enters into this part. The female gamete here is the egg cell. The female gamete over here is the egg cell. It comes to fertilize this. The sperm nuclei come to fertilize this. Out of this 2 sperm nuclei, only 1 is able to fuse this egg cell. So here I was talking about the egg cell. This particular cell is known as the egg cell, and just nearby to that lies 2 more cells which are known together as synergid. And on the top part towards the chalazal end lies the 3 cells which are known as antipodal cells. And these 2 are known as 2 more cells, 2 more nuclei are present which is known as polar nuclei. This lies together as fused form. In fused form they lie, and you have learned in the lower classes also about double fertilization. This sperm nuclei, one of the sperm nuclei comes and fertilizes to this particular egg cell, and another sperm nuclei it goes and it fertilizes this one. So here comes the fertilization, and when it passes when another sperm nuclei passes to this part, that time it fertilizes this two, and these two are always lying together. Okay, these two are always lying in the fused form, and they come and the sperm nuclei come and fertilize this one. So that time it is known as the double fertilization. You can see and refer to your book also, it's mentioned very very properly. And it is also known, the double fertilization is also known as the triple fusion. It is given over your book, you just see, you can refer to your book as triple fusion. Why triple fusion? Because here lies two nuclei, that is 1, 2, and one more comes from this sperm nuclei. So together it becomes the 3 nucleus, and it is known as triple fusion since 3 nuclei are fusing together, and the fertilization is known as double fertilization. And here only one of the sperm nuclei goes and fuses with this one, and another one goes and fuses sometimes with this one. This double fertilization may happen or may not happen. Not in everyone. Not in every flower it happens. In some flower it happens. Okay, so this was all about the fertilization. You can see here that proper mention of double fertilization is given. One sperm nucleus fuses with one egg nucleus, that is this one. And second one is the other sperm nucleus fuses with the two polar nuclei of the central cell. So that time it is known as the double fertilization. So here this blue box is given in your book. You can just see and go through which part after fertilization becomes what. You have learned in the lower classes also, ovary becomes the fruit, I have mentioned, and the ovary wall becomes the pericarp. Pericarp, like it is the outer wall of the fruit. Suppose you are eating the apple, the red color of the apple is nothing but the pericarp, the outer layer. Ovule turns to become the seed. Placenta becomes the stalk of the seed. In chapter 4 you have learned about placenta. So it turns to become the stalk of the seed with which the seed is being attached. Outer integument and inner integument